when you're in pain, soothing as a springtime rain, to have a friend right in your corner, your heart will feel a little warmer. Tender loving care, tender loving care, each warm and friendly touch lets someone know you care so much. Tender loving care, tender loving care.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Greenbrier Almond, and thank you for joining us on our program, Tender Loving Care. Each week on Channel 3, for the past 36 years, we've been talking about an interface between faith and medicine. And tonight, I think we have another match with a special guest, Leanna Henkel. And Leanna wants to be a psychiatrist, and that's a step of faith for a young person to say, I'm going to set a big goal in life, and I'm going to study medicine, and I'm going to study the brain, and I'm going to study how we think and how we work, and then go out and help people. So it is a good interface between what we talk about here on our program, Tender Loving Care. So Leanna, thank you for saying that you'd come on, and I'm going to be a guinea pig, a school project for you also. Is that right?
Yes, and I wanted to thank you for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
You are going to be a psychiatrist someday.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we'll say yes, 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 right? And
Yeah, hopefully.
yeah, you almost have to set your sight on a goal. And I ran cross country when I was in high school, and our coach said we sometimes would want to walk, and he said, no, you can never walk. You know, if you're never, we'd say, well, we're tired, and then he'd say, no, you're not tired until you fall down and you can't get up, and then you're tired.
Yeah.
So anyway, the point being that there'll be times along the way you'll say, oh my, I want to take a shortcut, or I don't want to do this anymore, but don't say that to yourself, because you'll get there. I had one of those times. I was in medical school when I was at WVU, and of course WVU has wonderful football teams, and they had the old Mountaineer Stadium, which was downtown, and then our hospital was out on a hill on the Evanston campus. But every time on Saturday afternoon, I was studying in the library, had a big pharmacology class on Monday, a test, and here I am studying away, but the windows are open to the library. And so the Mountaineers are making one touchdown after another, and every time they make a touchdown, of course, the stadium erupts. And the sound comes right over the hill and right into the library, and I said, what am I doing here? and you know, it was really all I could do to not just close my book and run downtown, but I knew I had to at least sacrifice.
Yeah.
I look back on that and say, boy, that was a time I would have given up or given into temptation, so to speak. And of course, if I'd done that, I might have flunked out of school. Anyway, we make decisions along the way that keep us going. Well, what questions do you have, Leanna?
Okay, well, my first one is, what influenced you to become a psychiatrist, and would you recommend this career to others?
Okay, sure. I had a lot of different ways to answer that, how to be influenced. When I was in high school, actually, I wanted to be a math teacher for a strange reason. I mean, I liked Mrs. Powers, that was my math teacher, taught me plane geometry, solid geometry, algebra 2, various higher level math courses that the high school offered. But what I could see about her is that she didn't have to study. She knew that math, and it was the same every year. So she was involved in her church. I think her husband was a pastor. So she was doing a lot of things in the community. And I thought, I want to feel like that, where I know everything about it, but then I can go on and have all these hobbies and interests.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, math will do that for me. But anyway, but it wasn't quite what I wanted, so I didn't become a math teacher. But then I was going toward medicine. My father was a doctor, and it's easy to see, when your dad's good at something, you can see how you could do that and how you could help people. And so I really thought about being a doctor, but I thought about being a family doctor. But when I got to medical school, my favorite professor was the psychiatry professor. And he was really great. Don Carter was his name. And so he said one time, which my ears perked up, he said, "You can learn all the facts about psychiatry in 6 months." That's like math, you see. And he said, but it'll take a lifetime to learn how to practice the healing arts, the healing part of psychiatry. Listening, helping people, gaining trust, because psychiatrists take care of people that have been really, really hurt.
Yeah.
And so they don't trust anyone, or not easily. And so the doctor-patient relationship becomes the key. Anyway, so Dr. Carter's statement, though, about learning all the facts interested me, and I thought, well, I need to study a specialty like that, because I don't want to keep opening these textbooks the rest of my life and worrying about them. But I made a mistake, because psychiatry, we just had the decade of the brain in the 1990s, and neuroscience has advanced tremendously. We know a lot about Alzheimer's disease, dementias, and chronic diseases like that now that we didn't know before. We got the Nobel Prize in Medicine in the year 2000 for post-traumatic stress disorder, which so many people have. People who have been raped, people in fire, flood, near fatal accidents, of course our soldiers. But the Nobel Prize went for a neurological disease. And anyway, now I have to study all the time. But that was one of the reasons I chose it. In the beginning, I thought I need a reprieve from constant studying.
Yeah. Well, so would you recommend this career to others then?
Right, good question. Yes, definitely. The people there's nothing better in the world than to helping people. And now I know that a nurse helps people. I know that. I mean, a teacher helps people. A pastor helps people. But a doctor has a very, very special relationship. Where in society can someone come? For example, the illness role. We all have different roles. You're a daughter. You're a best friend. You're a student. You have roles like that. But the illness role is a very powerful role in our society. If someone says, "I'm sick," they get special attention, don't they? And they get to stay home from school and all sorts of things like that. But when someone comes then with a sickness, then to a doctor, then we have a very, very high privilege to take care of them and get them through the sickness and get them back to their health and make it a learning experience. And so psychiatry has when it gets difficult. There's a lot of times there's one complaint, one bug, one drug. We say that about infectious disease. You get the right. You have a streptococcus, and then you give a penicillin. So that's not easy. You still have to know a lot and make it match. But that's just science. Or surgeons, say I solve all my problems. I just go in and cut them out. And that's okay. But there are problems though that are hard to solve, and the psychiatrists get those. So people have been worked up for various things, and then they come see us. I saw a young soldier just yesterday. He wants to be in the Navy. He's thought about it all his life, but he has a chest pain that comes. His cardiologist says it's not the heart, and he doesn't want to have chest pain, but he gets it, and so where do they send him? To the psychiatrist. So now we have to figure out: is there a special meaning to having chest pain? Is there secondary gain, we call it in medicine, would it get him out of something. It looks like he's going to lose his career if he doesn't get over the chest pain. But the captain of the ship doesn't want his sailor to have chest pain all the time. He can't use them at sea. So anyway, so we get the privilege of solving mysteries, and that's exciting in psychiatry.
Yeah. What institution or institutions did you attend that you got to receive your degree from?
Okay. I had the real high privilege of going to West Virginia Wesleyan, which I think is an excellent college, and they had a good science department. In studying medicine, of course, you have to study chemistry, biology, all the basics like that. And so I got the core at Wesleyan. I liked Wesleyan too because I got a values education. I took a lot of extra philosophy classes and religion classes, literature classes. One of the definitions of a psychiatrist is a doctor who reads.
Yeah.
Now I'm not putting down other doctors, but there are some doctors who do practice their field very well, but they don't read novels and they don't read histories and they don't take an interest in philosophy or music. But psychiatrists, by the nature of what we do, we like to read. We like the arts and the music and so forth. And so Wesleyan had all of that for me as a liberal education.
Were you originally from Buchanan?
And I was originally from Buchanan. I graduated from
So
Buchanan Upshur High School in 1966.
So it was like a hometown school for you?
Yeah. And the other thing happening then was the Vietnam War, and you didn't want to flunk out of school. I mean, you'd be drafted into the service, and some of my friends died in Vietnam, so that was a tragic thing to lose friends. But Wesleyan, I thought was getting individual education. I thought about WVU for undergrad, but they had 300 members in some basic biology classes.
Yeah.
Well, there were hardly 300 people in our high school class, and class of 66. So I thought I can get lost up at WVU. It even now has a reputation as a party school and so forth like that. So I didn't want to go to a big school, and I chose Wesleyan. Good choice. And then I went to studied medicine at West Virginia University. The four-year school had just begun in 1960, and I started in 1970. So it was a brand new school. They had a pop tax, a penny on every bottle of pop sold in West Virginia, and that funded the whole school. The pop tax is still a penny, but it doesn't go as far.
Yeah.
If they want to fund the medical education, they should probably increase that to a nickel or something.
Yeah.
Or dime even. But anyway, we had excellent facilities. And then I went to study psychiatry, and I also did family practice. I wanted to do general medicine because I thought there's another thing Dr. Carter said. He said if you're a psychiatrist, you take care of the dirty diseases, and that doesn't mean that people are unwashed, but people look down on some people with psychiatric illness. If someone's nervous, then people don't want to be close to them, or if someone's depressed all the time, they're no fun, or if someone's drinking too much, of course they may be violent or something. So anyway, he used the term dirty diseases, and I understood what he was talking about. But I wanted to come back to Buchanan, and I thought those folks will need a family doctor too, won't they?
Yeah.
They'll have high blood pressure, they'll have cholesterol, they'll get gallbladder attacks. So if I'm taking care of someone who's depressed and other doctors and other people are rejecting them, then I can be their family doctor as well as their psychiatrist. So I tried to study both. And then I went to Charleston for that. We were having Charleston Area Medical Center was combining all the hospitals in the Kanawha Valley, some of them. And so we had 800 beds. And you want to go, when you're studying your residency or internship, you want to be where the action is. And 800 beds is a large size hospital. So I got to see everything. We had kidney transplants, the first in the state, and a lot of people if they're depressed, they'll reject their kidney. So they had to see the psychiatrist to make sure they're not depressed, or if they're depressed, get over it before they get their kidney transplant. So we were helping people with transplant surgery in Charleston, and we had 8 floors of neurology, and we had so many things happening, like children in Logan County. I always remember this little boy in a coma. He'd been riding a bicycle and he ran into a coal truck, and he's in a coma for 6 weeks. And we were taught, talk to the patient even if they're in a coma. So I would talk about my dog, and I understood he had a dog, and and I would just chat with him on rounds every day, because we had to keep turning him, because in a coma you can get, if you're not careful, your skin will get a lesion, a pressure sore.
Yeah.
And all sorts of things. You had to take good care of the person while they're in a coma. But anyway, I kept talking to him, and lo and behold, in 6 weeks he woke up, and he remembered those conversations, even though he was not with us for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was a real privilege to have 8 floors of neurology, and I thought I really could come back and take care of folks. Some of the people I saw when I first got back had Alzheimer's disease. I already knew about that, because I was in a big hospital.
How many years did it take you to receive your doctorate?
Okay, usually it's 4 years of college, and then 4 years of medical school, and then you don't feel like it, but then you get your white coat and you get to be called doctor. But then you have to do your specialty training, and that's usually an internship, a general medical internship, and then there's 3 years for the specialty of psychiatry. And psychiatrists are also neurologists. So I did a year of neurology, and so it's not that we can take care of all those diseases, because there's so many diseases, but the specialty is to be a specialist in psychiatry and neurology.
Okay. I'm sure those years of schooling, though, like you said, with the football game and everything, were difficult. But if you could, would you go back and repeat them?
Go back and repeat the
years of education.
What I did, yeah. Actually, there was a merit to. At the time I was doing it, I had the secondary gain was that I didn't want to be out of school and drafted to Vietnam. Yeah. I didn't want to do that. And Dad and I talked about it. He was a doctor. He said, well, if you go all the way through medical school, you'll still serve, because that time every person served. It wasn't like a volunteer army, so everyone did their 2 years. Of course, you could sign up for more than 2 years, but everyone did 2 years. But he was right. He said if you're a doctor, you'll be in a base hospital someplace. In other words, I would not be right in the jungle of Vietnam. I would be in Japan or Guam, or I'd be back in the States. And then when something happens to a soldier, then I would be taking care of them at a base hospital. And as it turned out, by the time I got out of my program in 1977, the war was over in 1975. So it was a very long war, 1959 to 1975. But I stayed in school till 77, so I missed going into the service for that reason. Now I served the Army Reserve, and then I worked at the VA also. So I took care of the soldier, but so it was a secondary gain to staying in school. But if I had if it hadn't been for the Vietnam War, I didn't really mind studying. I mean, I worked 4-H camps in the summer, and science camps and church camps, and I mean, you say camp to me and I say, okay, I'm a counselor, I'm going to go. And I love that, and I could not have done that if I'd gone into the coal mines or something like that. I saw a friend of mine 10 years after high school, and he said, I spent 10 years in the pits, meaning, in a deep mine and working, and you've been out there having your summers off, and you've been in school, and he was looking back on his own life and saying he made a mistake. But I didn't really mind studying, and then having the free time that goes with being a student, and really it wasn't expensive back in those days. medical school was $150 a semester. I mean, now you could multiply that by 10,
Yeah.
but $1,500 is even not expensive today if you had to think about it to become a doctor.
Yeah.
So it wasn't out of reach for anyone to stay in school and study. And I would have, I would have probably studied a little harder in some courses than others, but I would still have wanted to be educated.
Yeah.
The other thing, this happened to me, in 7th grade, my principal at the junior high, Buchanan Junior High, was Lamar Bond. And he was also my Sunday school teacher at the First United Methodist Church. And so one day in class, one of the boys brought up and said, "I want to be a truck driver." And Mr. Bond got angry a little bit at him, not per se at him, but said, "You can be a truck driver." He said, "That's honorable. We need truck drivers." He says, "But get your education first. Because if you're, say, trained to be a teacher or trained for some other field in education, you can drive a truck. But if you don't like that, you can go back to what you're educated for. But if you do it the other way, you're stuck.
Yeah.
If you don't have your education and you don't like being a truck driver, you're stuck." And I always thought about that point. So I would have, I might have liked to have done different things. But I would still be in favor of education.
Well, after you received your degree, how many years did you practice psychiatry? Like how many years were you in?
Well, I've been at this for 40 years now. I count that starting in 1974 when I got the MD degree, and here we are, 2014, 2015. So I'm 41 years, I guess, this year.
Yeah.
So I've been doing this a while.
Yeah.
Now my dad said something wise to me when I got my diploma and became a doctor. He said, "You know more about the scientific basis of medicine now than you'll ever know again." Because we've been studying night and day for 4 years to learn all the science of medicine. He said, but later on, like 40 years later, you'll know really about the practice of medicine. And he's right. I mean, I'm not afraid of any problem. I mean, I've seen it all 2 or 3 times. I regret the harm people do to one another. But what a psychiatrist does basically is take care of the victims of harm. There are really mean and nasty people out there, and they deserve to be in jail or whatever happens to them, because of how they've hurt, say, their own children, or if it's a man, how he's hurt his wife, or if it's a mother, how she's hurt some other person. Anyway, the mean and nasty people are out there, but the ones we got to take care of are the victims, and they deserve to be taken care of with tender, loving care.
Yeah.
That's the thesis of everything I do, and so that's a real privilege. And people never forget that, I've taken care of thousands and thousands of people, and someone's depressed, they come in and see me and they're crying and it's all hopeless, and they've already tried to kill themselves. I mean, they don't come to us first. They go, they do some strange things on the way as they suffer their pain. But I tell them, I say, you're going to get over this. We're going to get over this together. And then like 6 months later, or whenever they're feeling better, I ask them. I say, "Okay, what did I say, or what did we do that made a difference for you?" And they usually say that, go back to that first conversation. They say, "You told me that you're going to stay with me till you get well," which I don't abandon the patient. Doctors cannot abandon their patient, whether they can pay the bill or not. We don't abandon the patient. And then the second is that I assured them that they would get well. And I'm not, not Pollyannish, but we know a lot. We have a lot of science. We can really offer things, and people will get well.
Well, going along with what you said, even if it's a patient that can't pay or anything, but in all your years of practicing, what was the hardest situation you had to face? I mean, I know you probably can't be specific
Yeah.
for
yeah.
patient confidentiality, but was there just something generic that stuck out that was the hardest?
Yeah, I'll tell you one of the things I was doing that I was very hard, and you would identify this because you're a student still. I was going down to Clay County, which is perhaps one of the poorest counties in West Virginia. I'm not sure of that, but it's pretty poor. So, and I was doing a school-based clinic, and they needed help. They didn't have any counselors in the county. It's too poor for that, and they didn't have any psychiatrists and so forth. So they said that they would pay me whatever they paid teachers and administrators to drive. I think it was 50 cents a mile to drive down there, and so I got about $50 to drive, and then they'd pay me for the time I spent in the school. I basically would stay there from 9 till 3, and I would see the children who were in trouble. And so I was doing that for 7 years, and I was really getting tired of that. That's a long drive, especially in the wintertime.
No, yeah.
And so and I was about to give up. I said, I can do something else. I need to do something else. The principal at the grade school came into me and said, "Doc, I know it's lunch hour. You need a break and everything." But he says, I have 3 kids I need you to see. And okay, doctors say yes, that's what we do. Someone call us to the ER, we go, So anyway, so I said, okay, I don't need a meal every time. And so they brought in, this was a three little kids, a red-headed boy, he was about 12 or 13, and his dad had been on drugs, methamphetamine or something like this. And he was berserk, and berserk is a Filipino word, by the way. It's gotten into our language, and we understand what it means. It was raving mad, dangerously mad. Anyway, he was berserk, and he attacked the mother with a knife. And this little 12 or 13-year-old boy stood in front of the mom to protect her life, and was stabbed in the stomach. So he had PTSD. I mean, the surgeon had already sewn up his stomach. He wasn't bleeding guts right then. But anyway, but he was suffering an anxiety syndrome we call PTSD, with traumatic memory of what happened to him and all sorts of triggers, and so he could hardly focus, and he was very overwhelmed with fear, and so then there was a little boy, probably about 6 years old. 7 years old maybe, who was very depressed. He had already gone past bedwetting, and he was growing up and doing things well, but now he was regressed. He was crying all the time, he was bedwetting again, and so he was very depressed. And then there was this little girl, she was just as cute as a button, the saying is, and she, so I'm going to cry even to describe this because it was so bad. But anyway, she was. I was hearing the story, and she said to me, "Doctor, you're crying," and I said, "Your story is so sad." And so anyway, she was just needing loved, And so I said, I can't stop. No matter what I want to do, even if I want to stop, I have to keep going. So I stayed another 2 years, and these kids did wonderfully. There was a lady who more or less adopted them to take to her church. They got into youth programs and 4-H and scouting, and of course they were good kids. The little depressed boy wanted to be a doctor someday. The little girl wanted to be a nurse. So it was a wonderful experience. But you get into that and you say, oh, I'm too far into this. What am I going to do? It just seems so difficult when that happens. There have been sad times. I mean, things I wasn't involved in. I never got involved, and I regret it. I was waiting to see a patient one day, right after lunch. I usually schedule an hour new patient right after lunch. That way, I don't have any interruptions. I can start on time, get the right relationship going with the patient. Anyway, they said, "Doctor, your 1 o'clock will not come. He just committed suicide." I thought, oh my goodness, I could have scheduled him at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
You get in close calls like that and you wonder what you're going to do. Well, we're going to be out of time here. We're going to keep going. Is that okay?
Yeah.
You asked me more questions. Thank you for joining us on this program, this Tender Loving Care. We need to probably continue this conversation. Leanna is actually doing a school project and she wants to be a psychiatrist, and there's much more to talk about. So stay tuned. Probably next week you'll see the rest of the program.
Stories of a West Virginia Doctor, written by Dr. Harold D. Allman. A collection of 55 short stories about his experience as a small-town doctor in central West Virginia. And Tender Loving Care, Stories from a West Virginia Doctor, Volume 2, written by Dr. Greenbrier Allman, using videotapes to write 70 additional stories of his father's very colorful life as a small-town doctor. They can be found for purchase at Amazon.com and most local bookstores. Tune into Channel 3 Buckhannon for Tender Loving Care with Dr. Greenbrier Allman, where he talks about the connection between Christianity and medicine.